Alrighty, so happy 2014 to everyone. This will be my first broadcast of the new year. I hope everyone was safe, besides the little girl who burned her family's house down. We're going to be talking about Executive Order 10925. Please feel free to slow down and read all of the information on the slides. Again, if you watch my videos, you know I like to present things in a history lesson form because I am a historian. I still don't know how to use Windows Media Maker and all this other stuff. I'm not that technologically inclined, excuse me. So please bear with me, and I'm still working on my women series I told you guys about. And here's my final disclaimer. Should you choose for any reason this year to start talking crap, I will freely block you. Let's keep this respectful, okay? Executive Order 10925 sounds familiar. This has a profound effect on race relations in the United States. Such programs can be found in countries throughout the world and have caused division. Some nations are still divided over this issue, including us in the United States. All right, so affirmative action is proof positive that we do not live in a post-racial society. Competition should be based on merit and not the color of one's skin. That should go without saying by now. Well, with us who have good sense. If certain disadvantaged groups are underperforming, what are the factors that contribute to that lack of success? I want to get some feedback from you guys on that question. That's why I asked. Alrighty, a good read for this would be Thomas Sowell's book entitled Affirmative Action Around the World. I have it, and I do believe I'm going to read it again this year after reading it next year. It's a profound book. If you ever have time, please read it again. It is Thomas Sowell's Affirmative Action Around the World. Ethnic minorities were at a disadvantage prior to affirmative action, so that goes without saying, but by no means were completely held back from some levels of success. The program was intended to open doors that in the past were shut. I firmly believe that when affirmative action was passed in the United States, the intentions were good. The purpose was to display that ethnic minorities were as smart and capable as their white counterparts. Few people can legitimately dismiss the ideal of educating ethnic minorities prior to affirmative action. Bothered those who preferred to stick with the status quo and didn't want mainly black people to learn how to read and write. But the road to hell was paved with good intentions. In the aftermath of affirmative action, a program intended to give an edge has given way to bitterness and resentment. And that's not just in the United States if you read Thomas Sowell's book. What few people, namely liberals, won't discuss is that there were accomplished ethnic minorities in this country prior to and leading up to the passing of affirmative action. Okay, you know about W.E.B. Du Bois, but I'm not going to talk about him. It goes without saying that a few broke through the barriers. I have selected quite a few ethnic minorities that, despite their circumstances, have become successful prior to affirmative action. In a system that was against them as a result of the color of their skin, they rose to the challenge and succeeded in their respective fields. The next few slides will be about those people, and I will script these slides because it's a lot of information for a lot of people. So if you're ready for a history lesson, well, here we go. Ernest Everett Just was born in segregated South in a two-parent home of a father who was a second-generation dock builder. He lost his father when he was 4 years old, and his mother taught at an African-American school to support the family. During the summer, she worked in the phosphate mines on James Island for supplemental income, and you can find this in Wikipedia. He was a smart kid and a fast learner, but lost some of his memory as a child after catching typhoid. Eventually, he'd go on to study at Kimball Hall Academy before enrolling at Dartmouth College, where he discovered an interest in biology after reading a paper on fertilization and egg development. According to webfiles.com, in 1924, Dr. Just was selected by a group of German biologists to contribute to a monograph on fertilization, one of a series of monograph specialists working on fundamental problems of the function and structure of the cell. He is a contributor to the Volume 2 of Dr. Jerome Alexander's 3-volume series on colloid chemistry. I think I said that right. Sorry, chemist. From 1920 to 1931, Dr. Just was the Julius Rosenwald Fellow in Biology of the National Research Council. Under this grant program, he engaged in research as an adjunct researcher of the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Biology, Berlin, Dahlem, working under Professor Mark Hartmann Department. He also worked at the Marine Biological Laboratories in Naples and in Sicily. One of his greatest published works is The Biology of the Cell Surface. Francis Louis Cardozo was born to a free black woman and a Portuguese Jewish man. He was apprenticed as a carpenter at the age of 12 for 5 years and eventually attained journeyman status. That's according to Answers.com. A member of the Second Presbyterian Church, Cardozo received a letter of recommendation from the church's pastor in about 1848, left to study in Great Britain. He spent 4 years at the University of Glasgow and then spent the next 3 years attending Presbyterian seminaries in Edinburgh and London. Cardozo began his political activities in spring of 1866 when he served on a board advising military commander of South Carolina about voter registration regulations. In the spring of 1868, he was elected to the state constitutional convention held in Charleston. Jonathan Jasper Wright, according to GaleGroup.com, was born in 1840 when slavery was still practiced in the United States, but he is believed to have been born to free parents. There's not a lot of knowledge about his mother, but his father was a Pennsylvania farmer who relocated the family to Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. According to Wikipedia, he went to school as a youth only in winter months and worked for neighboring farmers the rest of the year. And the rest of my information is from South Carolina Africanamerican.com. He attended Lancaster University and upon completing his study of law, attempted to stand the Pennsylvania bar. Unable to do so, presumably because of the color of his skin, Wright accepted a position in Beaufort, South Carolina, teaching newly freed slaves. In July 1868, Wright was elected as a delegate to the South Carolina Constitutional Convention. In this position, he played a major role in shaping the provisions relating to the judiciary. In the first election in which freemen could vote, Wright was elected as senator from Beaufort County. Shortly after his election to Congress, an opening occurred in the South Carolina Supreme Court. The position was sought by William Whipper, a House member, and Wright, a senator. Wright was chosen to fill the position, the first African-American elected to any appeals court in the nation. As Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, Wright wrote 87 opinions that were recognized for their clear thinking and solid basis in common law. Edmonia Lewis, according to PBS.org, was born to a mother who was Chippewa of the First Peoples of the United States and a father of African descent. According to Smithsonian, which I got the rest of the information, her date of birth is actually disputed and her parents died within a few years after her birth, though Wikipedia has a different take on it, so you might want to go look at that. She is said to have been raised by an older brother on the reservation. It is this brother who paid for her to attend Oberlin College. Excuse me for the burp, I'm sorry. She was an artist and while in Rome adopted their neoclassical style. Wikipedia has a list of her well-known works which can be found in museums throughout the United States. So for a young woman who lost her parents at an early age, she accomplished quite a bit. Mary Jane Patterson, according to African American Registry, was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, the oldest child of Henry and Emmeline Patterson's 7 children. In 1856, she and her family moved to Oberlin, Ohio, where they joined a growing community of free black families who worked to send their children to college. Her father worked as a master mason, and for many years the family boarded large numbers of black students in their home. According to Answers.com, in 1857, Mary Patterson entered a 1-year preparatory course at Oberlin College. At that time, most Oberlin women followed the 2-year ladies or literary course, which led to a diploma. However, after her preparatory year, Patterson entered the 4-year gentleman's course, in classics that led to a traditional Bachelor of Arts degree. Patterson's studies included Latin, Greek, and mathematics. According to Cultural Tourism DC, Patterson left one highly regarded educational institution for another. The Preparatory High School for Colored Youth, which had just been organized. She began working there as a teacher and was quickly promoted to principal, a job she held in 1871 to 1872 and from 1873 through 1884. She would continue to teach until her death. Patterson, who was the school's first black principal, held a strong foundation for the first public high school for blacks in the nation. Her achievements include the initiation of high school commencements and a teacher training department. Zitkala-Sa, her name translates in the language of the Sioux to red bird, was raised there by her mother, Ellen Simmons, who's Sioux. Her father was a European American named Felker who abandoned the family when Zitkala-Sa was very young. You can find this all on Wikipedia. She was raised on the reservation until the age of 12 when her mother reluctantly sent her to a Quaker missionary school for natives because she wanted her daughter to be able to fend for herself later in life. But that can actually be found on bucknell.edu. Her musical talent earned her a scholarship to the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston, Massachusetts. She then traveled to Paris, France for the Paris Exposition as a violin soloist. After returning to the U.S. in 1898, she became a teacher at the famous Carlisle Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, which was founded by Colonel Richard Pratt in 1879 for the purpose of assimilating and civilizing Native Americans. In other words, killing the quote-unquote, and I don't mean to be offensive, Indian in the child. Colonel Pratt sent Zitkala-Sa back to her reservation to round up prospective students for Carlisle that summer, but she just decided not to return because she refused to participate in having more Native students sent there. After relocating to Boston, she began her professional writing career. In addition to being an accomplished violinist, she also collected and published Native American stories. Tappe versus Hurley is a Supreme Court action dealing with segregation in schools prior to Mendez versus Westminster, which I have already done a video on YouTube if you want to watch it, as well as Brown versus the Board of Education. Mamie Tappe, the student in question, was a Chinese American girl born to Chinese immigrants. She was denied entrance into a school in San Francisco because of her Chinese ancestry. Her parents sued San Francisco Board of Education and won. They appealed, and on appeal, the California Supreme Court upheld the decision. And we all know Mamie Tappe was discriminated against because of a long-standing hatred of the Chinese going back to the gold rush. Jane Matilda Bolin was born in Poughkeepsie, New York. I can never say the name of that city, so if you're from there, I'm sorry. To a black American father and a white English mother who died when she was a little girl, so her mom's from England, white lady from England. When she attended Wellesley College, Mrs. Bolin, she was one of 2 black students and had to move off campus with the other black student because of the tension on campus. Though she was advised while attending there not to apply to Yale Law School due to her race and gender, she did anyway and would go on to be the first black woman in the United States to graduate from Yale Law. Even though she was told as a black person to never apply, she did it anyway and made history. While in the justice system, Bolin worked to ensure that probation officers were assigned to cases without regard to race or religion. All right. Marion Frederic Ramirez de Arellano, if I massacred his name again, I apologize, was born in Puerto Rico and moved with his family to Georgia as a child. He entered into the U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, Maryland, as a midshipman from Puerto Rico on 21 July 1931. At the academy, he participated in athletics, winning his letter in soccer, tennis, and varsity gym. Was a member of Reef Points, which is a pistol club, and the electrical gang. At graduation with the class of 1935, he won the Society of Cincinnati Prize for standing highest for the course in the Department of Languages. Commissioned ensign in the U.S. Navy on 6 July 1935, he subsequently attained the rank of commander. His date of rank 1 March 1944. According to Wikipedia, he was awarded 2 Silver Stars, the Legion of Merit, and a Bronze Star for his actions against the Japanese Imperial Navy during World War II. Pretty accomplished for a man who was not born in the United States. Herbert Young Choy, hope I got that right, was born in Hawaii to Korean immigrants who worked in Hawaii sugar plantations. After graduating high school in 1934, Judge Choy attended the University of Hawaii and received his Bachelor of Arts in 1938. He continued his education at Harvard Law School, earning a law degree in 1941. Following graduation, Judge Choy served in the Army during World War II from 1941 to 1946, and you can find most, if not all of this, at the Just Beginning Foundation. He starts his career off as a law clerk in Honolulu. Afterwards, he joins a law firm where he'd go on to become a partner before becoming Attorney General of Hawaii. On April 21, 1971, Judge Choy was nominated by President Nixon to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit, which is headquartered in San Francisco. His appointment made him the first Asian American judge on the United States Court of Appeals. Judge Choy was also the first federal judge from Hawaii to be appointed to the Federal Court of Appeals. Patsy Takemoto Mink was born in Maui, a sensei, the term used for third-generation Japanese Americans. Her father was a civil engineer and her mom a homemaker. Her father was the only Asian civil engineer and for a time would be passed up for jobs due to his ethnicity and race. Mink moved to Honolulu, where she attended the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She spent 1 semester enrolled at Wilson College in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. She then transferred to the University of Nebraska, where she once faced discrimination. The university had a long-standing racial segregation policy where students were, if you weren't white, you stayed in whole different dormitories than the white students. Well, you know how that went. This annoyed Mink, and she organized and created a coalition of students, parents, and administrators, etc., corporations, according to Wikipedia. Mink and her coalition successfully lobbied and ended that segregation policy. In 1965, Mink became the first female minority to join the ranks of Congress. She served 6 consecutive terms. During the 1972 presidential race, Mink ran in the Oregon primary as an anti-Vietnam War candidate. Mink also introduced the first comprehensive the Early Childhood Education Act, nearly massacred that, and authored the Women's Educational Equity Act. All of these laws were written by Mink, were declared landmark laws by Congress. Alright, so I didn't tell you everything as can be predicted. If you want to look these people up, be my guest. But you have a list of some of the best schools in the nation. Yale Law, Harvard Law, Dartmouth, University of Glasgow, which is not necessarily in the United States, that's in Scotland, of course, and Wellesley College. Schools that did not typically let in black people or any person that was not white, but somehow these people rose above the occasion before there was an affirmative action. In no way am I trying to say with this video that Jim Crow was a good thing, because it wasn't. But what I'm saying is that even during this time, there were people who rose above their circumstances. So, to give you my honest opinion, I think that affirmative actions no longer needed and can easily go away. Yeah, I know I'll get a lot of backlash for that, but before you do understand that I live in Washington State, and we're one of 3 states that's really not an affirmative action state. So by the time I got my education, I got it in a non-affirmative action state. It is possible if people allow themselves to believe. And let's be honest, schools aren't going to just go ahead and radically kick out every ethnic minority because affirmative action's gone away. Again, that's also addressed in Thomas Sowell's book, Affirmative Action Around the World. He empirically proves that when you get rid of affirmative action programs, it doesn't necessarily mean that blacks will be at a disadvantage or any other ethnic minority. Again, I thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you've taken this all in. I've given you the history lesson and the proof that prior to affirmative action, there were people who rose above their circumstances, and even post-affirmative action, which I hope we get to that point, you can still do so. Thank you so much. Happy New Year. Please feel free to answer that question that I posed in the beginning about disadvantaged groups, and God bless. Again, don't make me block you. Thanks and have a good one.